This week on LTC News, a beautiful Earth Day.
Marching with everyone just to raise awareness.
What is Cinqo de Mayo? And making Lowell bike friendly.
City officials that we're going to work with and identify some spots to do some tactical urbanism.
Stay with us. Welcome to LTC News. I'm your news anchor, Alanna Flood. It was 1970 when the first Earth Day was celebrated. We've come a long way since then, but there's still a lot to do to take care of the planet. In Lowell, the celebration on April 23rd began with a parade from the Park Visitor Center to UTech on Warren Street. After the parade, a sustainability festival entertained and educated the crowd.
Is important because it was started in like 1970 in reaction to a huge oil spill, and so 20 million people sort of all gathered together and actually it resulted in the creation of the EPA. And so while we're significantly less amount of people, I don't think that means we have that we will be having less of an impact.
We're gonna raise awareness about our organization, have food justice and food access for everyone, not only in Lowell but everywhere in the world. You know, it's like a very important issue, and we just kind of like marching with everyone just to raise awareness.
Because lots of animals are gonna get extinct.
We are here to let people know about the monarch butterflies that are going extinct because of their migration, and we need to plant more milkweed or flowers for them to pollinate and to eat and live longer.
And we're really excited to be here because we feel it's so important to connect to the place where we live and the place where we share the earth with, the plants and the animals. And so we're pretty excited to see all of these puppets and flags and banners that really celebrate the earth.
We protect the Merrimack River. We're the voice of the river, and that means a bunch of things, but basically two. One, we try to address issues of pollution that are still problematic, increase public awareness of the river and access to the river, because the river, though not swimmable, is used as a water source by a number of cities and towns in the area, including Lowell and Lawrence and the town of Andover. And it also has some wonderful opportunities for canoeing and rafting and simply sightseeing. So it's a fabulous resource. It's kind of a natural wonder of the area, and it certainly is open for recreation and tourism. It just needs to be monitored because we're not at fishable and swimmable, the promise of the Clean Water Act made back in 1972. It does not yet meet federal Clean Water Act standards.
And this year we have something called 100% renewable cities. And so our statewide group is trying to get 10 cities to get to 100% renewable energy. And that's something that's going to happen over time, over a number of years. But the initial step for most cities is to have a resolution that says, you know, this is a goal that we're going to have, and we're going to make plans to move in this direction.
It's a celebration of Lowell commitment to sustainability. If you think about it, Lowell is a phenomenal indicator of what it takes for a sustainable city.
I think for artists, one of the major ways that we help protect the environment is through proper disposal of our materials. And for oil painters and other artists, it means the proper containers and proper disposal and places you throw things, places you don't.
Every week we do recycling at the school, and we've done a lot of great things, a lot of programs that help the environment, and I think Lowell does a great job, and my students are very interested.
Even the sun came out in Lowell to celebrate Earth Day. And now, Brian Dorrington, LTC Director of Municipal Programming, brings us his City Council Synopsis.
Hello and welcome to the City Council Synopsis for the meeting of April 25th, 2017. The talk of the new high school has subsided lately, but key information still keeps coming in every day. the council was presented a report from City Solicitor Christine O'Connor outlining the process of eminent domain. Option 3 involves the acquisition of a neighboring commercial property, which is currently occupied by medical practitioners. The owners of the property have made it clear they have no intention of selling, which would mean that if the council chooses option 3, they would need to take the property via eminent domain. Several councilors have openly stated they are opposed to any option involving eminent domain, despite it being a process that the council has supported in the past. O'Connor gave an overview of the procedures, stating that eminent domain is permitted when it furthers a public purpose. The taking of properties for schools is recognized as furthering a public purpose and is permitted under Massachusetts law. In order to take a property, the council must pay the property owner fair market value and accommodate the owners by providing reasonable moving costs. O'Connor stated the city makes every effort to help find a suitable replacement property. She also pointed out that eminent domain cases are rarely challenged by the property owners, and that when they are challenged, the city has a good record of winning in court. Councilor Elliott gave a recap of what happened at the Finance Subcommittee meeting on Monday the 24th. And yes, I do realize I forgot the D in one of the 3 E's in redevelopment, so to make up for it, I added an extra D and an E to whoops, which gives me who dopes. And we all know who the dope is. Councilor Elliott talked about how the new high school will affect residential property taxes. He said that 95% of the residential properties in the town are assessed between $250,000 and $450,000. Those 95% of the homes valued in that range will see an increase of $266 to $515 a year, depending upon what option is chosen. This increase is just because of the high school alone. It doesn't take into account any other factors that could call for a future increase in property tax. Lastly, the councilors seemed unhappy with some of the new fees that the administration has recently imposed. Councilor Rourke made a motion for the city manager to provide a report on the fee increase for the use of fields by local organizations. Councilor Rourke said that he volunteers as a football coach for a nonprofit organization, and they were hit with a $5,000 bill just for using the practice fields. He and other councilors pointed out that if these charges to local nonprofit organizations stick, these organizations won't be able to survive. Councilor Milanazzo requested a report on the new business tax levied against the artists at Western Ave Studios. Many of the councilors questioned whether this was the right thing to do and said it could discourage some artists. The city manager will provide a report on both fee increases for the council to review. Well, that's all I have for you today. Remember, you can watch the meetings on LTC Channel 99 or on demand anytime at ltc.org. Thanks for watching and be swell.
Historically, the streets of Lowell have not been friendly to cyclists. Happily, the Lowell Bike Coalition, a community group in the city, is working to change that through various projects that they call tactical urbanism. Charles Arnold, a member of the Bike Coalition, explains.
So tactical urbanism is a means by which citizens can work with cooperative city governments to point out small areas where we can make some rapid gains and getting projects completed in a very short period of time, kind of innovative, short demonstration projects, like a pop-up bike lane, which you can actually set out with traffic cones or even white duct tape, or a parklet in which a parking space is sacrificed for a day and a little mini park is set up, that kind of thing. So we have some very cooperative city officials that we're going to work with and identify some spots to do some tactical urbanism. Let me give you a little background. The Lowell Bike Coalition is a several hundred member group of cyclists and interested advocates in the city of Lowell. And we held a meeting last week on a Thursday to come up with areas that we wanted to focus on. And one of these was the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail extension. We're standing on the rail trail right now. And as you know, it goes another couple miles from this point in Chelmsford. It dead ends at the Cross Point Towers in Lowell, and a lot of people just go and turn around and head back. What we would like to see is an extension, a safe extension from the end of the Freeman Trail into downtown. Our main role at this point is to support other groups who've been working on this for longer than we have, like the Lowell Parks and Conservation Trust under Jane Calvin. So we're going to work with them and support their efforts in that. Another aspect, as anyone knows who's spent any time walking, cycling, or driving in Lowell, is that a lot of road users don't really know the laws and the regulations that govern how we use the road. So part of our efforts there are going to be to educate cyclists on road rules, their rights and their responsibilities, and to educate drivers on to what it's like to be a cyclist on the road and the fact that cyclists do have rights to the road. And on bike racks, we have a team in place that's been working for a while now, Lisa Arnold and Mindy Doppler-Nelson, to commission artists to develop bike racks for a couple spots in the city. So as you know, anybody who knows who tries to park a bike in Lowell, we don't have enough bike racks either in the downtown or in the neighborhoods or in places where people want to shop, supermarkets and so forth. So in addition to getting these new bike racks installed very soon, they're already made, this group is going to be looking into other locations that we want bike racks in the future.
For more information on the Coalition's activity, join their Facebook page. Did you know that Cinqo de Mayo is more popular here in the United States than Mexico? It's a great time to party and celebrate Mexican culture. Let's go over to El Potro, a Mexican restaurant on Merrimack Street, to learn more.
Well, Cinqo de Mayo actually celebrates a battle that the Mexican army won over the French.
During the early years of the American Civil War, the French were invading Mexico, intending to take the country as a French territory. In a surprising David and Goliath-like turn of events, a tiny local Mexican army soundly defeated the powerful French troops in the colonial city of Puebla. The date was May 5th, 1862. Word of the bold defeat spread to the U.S. and was greeted with great pride by Americans of Mexican heritage living in the southern United States. The victory was seen as a symbol of resistance against European imperialism. Cinqo de Mayo is not recognized as a national holiday in Mexico today, and celebrations are mostly centered in the state of Puebla, where the original 1862 battle was won.
We do like military parades and stuff like that, celebrating the victory.
Here in the U.S., the day of the Puebla victory, Cinqo de Mayo, or May 5th, has become a day for celebrating Mexican heritage and culture.
Here we do, it's more about festivity, drinking. They like to party and they like margaritas so much, you know, and they like the mariachi music a lot. So it makes it a lot of fun.
Mexico gained its independence from the Spanish more than 50 years prior to the Battle of Puebla, and their Independence Day is celebrated annually on September 16th. Video is ubiquitous these days. You can get the skills you need to make your own video right here at LTC. The spring media making workshops are open for registration. Classes include camera, studio production, podcasting, and graphics. For more information, visit ltc.org. In this week's Sunspot, Lowell Sun Enterprise editor Chris Scott sits down with Lowell City Councilor Dan Rourke. Their topic, once again, the location of Lowell High School.
Hello everyone. I'm Chris Scott, the Enterprise Editor at The Sun. Thanks for tuning in to this week's edition of Sunspot. We're continuing our series of interviews with Lowell City councilors, focusing primarily on, seems like the only issue in the city these days, the high school. With us today is Dan Rourke. Dan, thanks for coming in. I appreciate it. Dan, you've made it clear that you are a proponent of building a new high school at Colley Stadium as opposed to any of the downtown sites. You must have been relieved this week when you got the message from the city manager's office that there are no endangered species out at Colley Stadium that could derail that, that could possibly derail that, huh?
Pretty good news, yeah. No spotted turtles or three-winged bats to worry about.
What about the salamanders?
Yeah, salamanders too. So, the process is everlasting, ongoing. It seems like it's taking even longer than it has, and hopefully, come in June we can decide on location. We get all the information sent to us, and we can go on from there.
Why do you think the issue has become as divisive as it has? I can recall here in the city debates over the arena, the building of the ballpark. I spoke to one of your colleagues last week, Rita Mercier, about the demolition of Julian D. Steel, which was really something else. But I don't recall any of those big projects taking on a life of its own like the high school has. What do you think has kind of controlled this and made it so bitter on both sides?
Yeah, so obviously, first up, it's the number one, it's the biggest project in the city's history. And school-wise, it's probably going to be the biggest project in the state's history. I do think that people just assumed in the beginning that I was going to go downtown and stay there. Then I think when the big change, I think, Chris, came on December 8th when the first presentation was given at the Irish Auditorium over at the high school.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when the idea of 40 to 50 modular classrooms, the limited swing space that was available for students during construction phase. And then when the alternatives were presented, people really saw the ability of the city to have a brand new educational facility at a campus atmosphere that could really benefit, I believe, personally, not only the students, but the city as well.
Mm-hmm. That meeting on December 8th, let's just stick with that for a minute. That's when it was revealed that there could be as many, as you said, 40 to 50 modular classrooms, right? And people flipped out over that. Modular classrooms apparently have a negative connotation to some people. I recall when I was a kid being educated in modular classrooms, I didn't think they were that bad. But anyway, isn't it true, though, that 2 or 3 days after that meeting, that the modular classrooms disappeared from the landscape?
Yeah, it's just one of those weird things, right? You go from...
That's more than a weird thing.
Yeah,
that's
very strange. So we had 2 or 3 meetings in a row where you heard modular classrooms, and I don't think that it's the idea of having a modular classroom. I've heard teachers tell me that they actually sometimes enjoy using it because it's a separate area to learn. I think the problem in Lowell, Chris, is where you're going to put those classrooms. Mm-hmm. And that day on December 8th, they stated that they're going to put classrooms on top of the garage, the air garage, close down Page Street, Father Morissette Boulevard. So you can imagine, the angst that was created by, not only for parents or students that would send their kids there during that time period, but for businesses and just in general. It's downtown's tough right now. It bottlenecks in the morning and afternoon when kids are coming and going from school, and to shut off Father Morissette Boulevard or Page Street and put classrooms on top of the air garage, I think really set the ball rolling. And then you saw the presentation given for the Colley site, and you saw the no disruption at all to students, minimal time to construct, 3 years. You saw every educational need that could be met over there, and I think you really saw a groundswell for the Colley site.
Sticking to the modular classrooms for a minute, and I think that speaks to a bigger part of this whole debate, which has been the integrity of information that has been put out there. The modular classrooms were in the plan on December 8th. They suddenly disappeared 2 or 3 days later, never to be seen again, never to be spoken again. But isn't that symbolic of a bigger problem here? And that problem is information and the lack of information that people can trust and information that's correct. Hasn't that been fueling a lot of the bitterness on both sides, because you don't know what to believe, or it might be put out there on Facebook. Some people looking at Facebook, oh, it must be true, but that's really not the case. Could you talk about that?
Sure. Yeah, and I agree. I think we went from again having dozens of modular classrooms and then having nothing. And then we had a presentation at the city council meeting by Skanska and Perkins Eastman.
After that December.
After all this has happened, and the question was, can you guarantee us now that there'll be no modular classrooms for options 2 or 3? And the gentleman said, no, I can't guarantee that. So, it's almost one of those things where that just, again, leads people to believe what's going on here, what's the truth. And, it's been tough. I agree with the manager in the sense that the process sometimes can be a little bit backwards, as far as getting information out and studies to be done. That's why you see a delay. We were supposed to vote in 2 weeks on location, and that's been pushed back to June 13th. And hopefully we go on June 13th.
Do you really think that on June 13th, that's a Tuesday night?
Tuesday night, yes.
Okay. That the city council will vote on Tuesday night, June 13th, on one of the options?
On June 13th, no. I think we're going to end up voting probably on the 15th or 16th because we're going to have about 200 registered speakers. In that 10 o'clock time period, depending on if councils want to stick it out all night or not. But I do believe that the 13th, the meeting on June 13th, will decide the location of the high school. I'm confident that we'll get all the information we need. We'll have a recommendation by the school building committee of what they think is the best location for the high school. But I do expect a very lengthy meeting on the 13th. Whether we get to it on a specific night,
right? But with 200 registered
right. I'm just going by. We've had a lot of passion on both sides for the high school, and whatever reason you have for wanting it or not wanting it in a certain location is legitimate and valid as far as I'm concerned. And you just got to collect all the information, have reasons and points for where you want the school to be located, and you make your best decision that you can.
Can you say with 100% confidence that it will come to a head on that second week in June? Because I'm hearing that it's an election year. It doesn't look like there'll be a primary, at least not right now, unless a whole bunch of people come out, which typically doesn't happen as the city approaches Memorial Day. Is there any chance, do you think, any remote chance, that the city council will put this off until after the election?
No, I think that would be just not doing your duty as a city councilor. If we're ready to go and we have all the information on the 13th, I would fully expect that we make a decision on that date. If not, that during that week. I see no reason to put it off until after any type of election or whatnot. It's been stated to the council many times that every 30 days that we delay this, it's $1.5 million is added to the total to the project. So, it's inherent on number one, Skanska and Perkins Eastman to get the information to us, for the manager to decipher that to us, for the school building committee to pick a preferred choice, and for the council to to either approve that choice or go in the direction that the council wishes to do so. So, any type of delay only adds to the to the bill.
Are you pleased with the performance of Skanska, of Skanska and Perkins Eastman on this?
Yeah, they are world-renowned companies, right? And you hear a lot of this side is pushing them this way, or another side is pushing them another way. I'm not sure they're going to risk their global reputation on Lowell. As great as we are, but I do think that they're doing their best all around to get the information out to us. I really don't think they care where the high school goes. They have recommendations that, or they answer our questions that we've asked them, and very simply, they've been asked multiple times, Chris, what site best fits the objectives and needs educational-wise of the students, and every single time that answer has been Cawley.
So if June 13th is the big date, there will be a date prior to that when you actually get some type of report, a feasibility study or something, right, that lists the pros and cons of each option plus the final cost, right? When are you going to get that?
I would hope that we get that, and what I'm hearing is that we'll get that at the May school building committee meeting. I want to see maybe.
When is that? Late May?
No, it's always the second Thursday of the month. So maybe May 9th, maybe 8th or 9th. So we'll have that information.
So that's just around the corner.
Right. Yeah. It's it's coming quick, and we're getting information all the time sent to us. So samples and the testing over at the high school, and the endangered species report and so forth. So it's a lot to take in. The first report they gave us was 3,400 pages. And didn't read it all at once, but you piecemeal through it and you get through that as well. So I can imagine you get another couple thousand pages in a couple of weeks. And again, it's inherent on the building committee and us to get through that and to make a educated decision.
Now, you've been very vocal in your support for Colley Stadium, really from the beginning, as long as I can remember, even more so than some other councilors. Tell us what you think Colley Stadium puts on the table that any of the downtown options do not.
Sure. First and foremost, I think the ability to have a brand new campus educational facility to be built, a building that can adapt to the future of learning going forward. You do have limitations downtown as far as the older buildings that are over there. I think to have everything located at one facility, I think also is a huge plus. I think the disruption that the kids would go through downtown over the course of 4, 5, or 6 years, and then you compare that to the Colley site.
3 years.
You're looking at 3 years, and no disruption whatsoever. You go from getting out of school in June, and you go start to a brand new facility come September. And then again, and the biggest picture of it all is the $300 million, right, or the $320 million. If someone's going to give you $300 million, are you going to use that on a renovation, or are you going to use that on a brand new project? If you're going to renovate your house, if you're going to, fix up your car, it's just, common sense you would think would lead to brand new, what's going in, the ability to expand in the future. I think are all pluses for the Colley site. And I do agree that there are some pluses for the downtown site. When I talk to people that support the downtown, there are things there that, that you could see that, could be a plus over there. But I think when you take in the totality of the bill, over $300 million, I think when you look at it, just in general, a renovation cost over a brand new building, I think is
your common sense approach doesn't seem unreasonable to me. However, I've heard numerous people talk about a potentially very high price tag for building a new facility at Colley's, as high as $350 million. We had the city manager in for an editorial board meeting last week where he talked about possibly a 7.5% to 9% increase in personal property taxes to fund a project of that magnitude. Can you still stick with Colley Stadium, even though if the price comes in at a level like that as opposed to one of the downtown options?
Yeah, sure. If we're talking $50, $60 million over the
difference
downtown, yeah, you have to look at things, okay? But I'll give you an example. The last 2 times we sunk,
we're getting up against the clock.
Right. The last 2 times we sunk millions and millions of dollars into the high school project. $20 million over 3 decades ago, and then $40 million in the 90s. Okay, so that's $60 million we've put into that facility. Both times they've had to take away money from the educational needs of the renovation to take care of operational needs. Okay, and that's on record. And you take away from science labs and so forth. So again,
we've got 1 minute left.
Sure.
Just go try to get one more question. So say, for instance, Colley is $50 or $60 million more. What do you see as the next best option downtown? Your colleague, Rita Mercier, last week said the next best option, she's also a Colley proponent, is option 3. Is it? I confuse the options. The one that takes the doctor's building. Do you see that as the next best option?
Maybe, and the reason why I say option 3 is if there's agreement in place between the manager and the owners of the Arcan Drive property, then great, we can look at it. I don't think it's going to be $50 or $60 million over at the Colley site. I think we're just getting into the testing over at the high school site where it is now, and the first scoop of dirt they took out of there, they found lead and arsenic, right? So I highly doubt we're looking at $50 million.
The city manager told us that that the doctors are not interested in selling or anything like that, that if the city wanted that building, it would have to take it by eminent domain. Can you see any circumstance on the horizon in which you would support an eminent domain taking?
No.
Okay. All right, we're out of time. Dan, I want to appreciate you. Thank you for coming in. I appreciate it. We'll continue our series of interviews with city councilors. Thank you for tuning in to this week's edition of Sunspot.
That's it for this edition of LTC News. You can find us on LTC channels 899, on the web at ltc.org, or get the link each week on Facebook. I'm Alanna Flood. Thanks for joining us.
Hablando de mujeres y traiciones, se fueron consumiendo las botellas, pidieron que cantara mis canciones y yo canté unas 2 en contra de ella. De pronto que se acerca un caballero, su pelo ya pintaba algunas caras. Me dijo, le suplico compañero, que no hablen ni en presencia de las damas.